Great. Well, welcome everyone. I hope you're having a great Thursday wherever you are. We are, I think, really excited for this conversation on the Carbon Data Open Protocol and the really important effort to drive carbon standardization and interoperability. My name is Caitlin Smith. I lead the RMI's Carbon Markets Initiative, and we are one of the co-chairs of CDOP. And I'm very excited today to be joined by the other three co-chairs who I will introduce shortly, and two CDOP members, Equitable Earth and Eco Registry. Equitable Earth and Eco Registry have both adopted the CDOP schema, and so we'll end with a little demo from them. This panel or this webinar, we will start with a quick description of CDOP, what we've accomplished so far, what we have on the horizon for the rest of the year, and then we will round out with the conversations with Equitable Earth and Eco Registry on why and how they've adopted the CDOP schema and how it's improving their work in the carbon market. As a reminder, we will do questions throughout the webinar. We will answer them at the end, but please drop your questions as they come, and we will put them in the chat throughout, and we will answer them when we get a minute. And so with that, I'm happy to introduce the CDOP co-chairs and initial set of panelists. First, we have Monica Greco. Monica is the Chief of Staff at the Global Carbon Market Utility. GCMU is a public purpose market infrastructure provider that is seeking to unlock capital for carbon projects. She works across all areas of GCMU's work as Chief of Staff. Throughout her career, she has built new organizations, companies, and initiatives for the public good. GCMU is one of the 4 CDOP co-chairs and co-leads the Principles and Policy Working Group, also called PPWG. Next, we have Ellen Sterling. Ellen is a technical climate consultant at Solvera, which is a ratings and intelligence agency for carbon credits and low carbon commodities. She is steeped in all aspects of carbon markets and has a passion for ensuring that carbon credits are high quality. Solvera is one of 4 co-chairs helping to lead CDOP. They co-lead PPWG with GCMU, and Ellen is also very active in the technical working group. Next, we have Nikodem Lackey. Nikodem is head of energy transition data projects at S&P Global, which sits in the Energy Horizons division. S&P Global is a leading provider of data analytics and market infrastructure, supporting global energy and environmental markets, which include carbon markets. Nikodem is passionate about applying innovative technological practices to process and deliver high-quality data with a particular emphasis on carbon markets. S&P is also one of the 4 CDOP co-chairs and co-leads the technical working group. Finally, we have Sebastian Weeks. Sebastian is an associate on the Carbon Markets Initiative here at RMI. We work to bring transparency and integrity to carbon markets. Sebastian works to strengthen carbon crediting data through CDOP, and also takes on some other projects. Sebastian has been really central to leading the technical working group, and supports all other co-chair efforts. So with that, we have a very talented and experienced panelists this morning. So I'm going to start kind of at the beginning. So Monica, I know that this we anticipate that the audience has quite a range of familiarity with the Carbon Data Open Protocol. And so including people who are pretty unfamiliar with it. So can you please provide an overview of what CDOP is, how it began, how we're structured?
Sure thing. Thanks, Caitlin, and glad to be here today and talking about CDOP. And so I think for people who aren't already involved in carbon in CDOP, but are involved in carbon markets, are definitely dealing with carbon credit data. That data historically has been really messy. It's been formatted differently. If it's formatted at all in a good way, the same labels refer to different things. We use different words to refer to the same things. It's frankly a mess. And so what this has meant for all of us is that whether we're a project developer or a crediting program, a rating agency, et cetera, many of us have spent a lot of time and a lot of money cleaning and reformatting that data. So that's unusual and it's unnecessary, and it requires market-wide coordination to fix. So it was actually our colleagues at Silvera who kicked off this process now almost 2 years ago, in September 2024, to pull together a group to think about what building a standardized data model would look like and how we could make such a thing eventually applicable across the entire market. And so our goal in setting up CDOP was to develop a common open data protocol that would create the basis for standardization, transparency, and fungibility. And this we think is critical, not just for the regular operations of all of our organizations and companies on a daily basis, but also to improve the integrity and the scale of the carbon markets in general. So our ambition is to eventually cover the entire carbon life cycle, or the credit life cycle, I should say, and to build something that's a public good for the whole market. And in order for it to be a public good, it needs to be built and governed in a way that is open and transparent and really inclusive of a wide swath of market actors. So we've organized ourselves into a coalition, which I forget how many of us it started with, but now we're over 75 members. And we've divided ourselves into different working groups, really to do a lot of heavy lifting to set this thing up. So we have a couple different groups that lead different areas of work. One is that we have a principles and policies working group, which works to develop first a set of principles, again, to make sure that both CDOP from the outset was designed, to be open, transparent, inclusive, et cetera, but also to make sure that as we make updates to the data model, that it still reflects those values, and continues to bring in new information and new actors as needed. And then we had a second working group, the technical working group, which was developing the actual data model. And so one of the other panelists will speak to this a little bit more, and I'll let them do that. So the other thing that we did to kind of pull these things together to stand up CDOP and to continue operating it into the future is the Principles and Policies Working Group developed a governance framework, basically to make sure that all of this continued to be updated and there were resources and people behind it to make sure that this could continue into the future. So people can participate in a variety of different ways. Some are very actively involved, and I'm very grateful for them. Others are more constrained and participate or even use the model. Increasingly, I run into people out in the market who are using our model, but aren't actually CDOP members. And I would really encourage everyone to join and become a CDOP member. There are a lot of ways to get involved. When you are involved, you can participate as a member. Those are the people who are actively involved in working groups. They're observers, and that's reserved for organizations that are NGOs, standard bodies, these kinds of organizations that participate in the meetings, but potentially also less actively. And for the folks who want to stay up to date, but don't have the time to contribute to the working groups, we have a category as well that we call contributors right now. Then there's the group of co-chairs, which you'll meet many of us today, and we run the secretariat. So what we do is we coordinate, we do a lot of the heavy lifting. What we're doing next, or what we finalized, I guess, a framework for, and now we're standing up, is a governance framework to figure out how this will continue to operate going into the future. So maybe I'll just pause there, Caitlin, and see if you have any other questions.
Yeah, well, Monica, thank you. That was very thorough and very detailed. I think maybe helpful to just kind of zoom out a little bit. And, CDOP has come a long way, as you mentioned. We now have 75 members, a lot of people. This is a member-driven effort, but we are trying to accomplish something. So it'd be great if you could kind of just end with a little bit on what does success look like? How will we know if we've pulled this off?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And so I think, first of all, we'll know we'll have been successful when everyone has a much easier time collaborating, seeing that the market is transparent because our data is in order, interoperable, et cetera. So for us, what that means practically is that we want to see a fully fleshed out data model that's both wide and deep across the credit life cycle. We want to have a sustainable governance mechanism in place, and we want to see broad adoption of the data model across the market and broad participation in CDOP to govern it and to continue to modify it and improve it over time. So I think that's what we're shooting for.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. Ellen, Monica mentioned that this initiative is relatively young and called out Silvera as the initial conveners and visionaries of the Carbon Data Open Protocol. So this was launched at New York Climate Week in 2024, so almost 2 years ago. Monica also mentioned that we're building a model that is wide and deep. Can you spend a little bit of time on kind of what have we accomplished in the last, almost 2 years, and what that wide and deep means in practice?
Yeah, of course. And what's great is we've made a lot of progress, which is fantastic. And that's really due to all the members we have engaged, also the people that you're seeing today on the webinar, and many others behind the scenes also working hard on this for the past couple of years. So last September at New York Climate Week, we launched the first set of schemas. So this included certain data categories such as project approach and details, location, disclosures, and issuances at last New York Climate Week. What we then have done in the past sort of 6 to 8 months has been to think about how that fits into the wider carbon market ecosystem. So essentially, we call it a steel thread, but it's essentially like an underlying data structure. Thinking about all the different data points and data categories you need from the pre-issuance phase, which was our initial focus, all the way to that retirement and reporting phase at the end of the life cycle that many corporates are also focusing on. What that allowed us to do is identify really what we'd already covered, but also how much was left to be done in this space, and really is orientated what we've been working on since last New York Climate Week. We've done 7 new categories that are just coming into basically coming live in the next couple of weeks. And then we're going to be doing 7 more over the next few months as we approach this year's New York Climate Week, to basically really expand our coverage of especially the pre-issuance space, but slightly wider now.
Yeah. So I think that it's hard, and I think the steel thread has been really helpful, right, in giving us a map to understand kind of what have we accomplished, where are we going, and what kind of information is really important to all different types of users who come into the carbon market. You mentioned that we have kind of 7 categories about to get published, 7 more on the horizon. I think for context, that's about half. Well, we'll have it by New York Climate Week, we'll have accomplished like half of what we are hoping for. And so I'd kind of maybe be curious if you have a little thought on how you see the work maybe evolving or progressing, or where there's a lot of momentum that you would like to see carried forward.
Yeah, definitely. And kind of like you said, Caitlin, the goal is to have essentially almost like half the thread done by New York Climate Week this September, with the hope that and the intention that all of the pre-issuance fields will be covered by the end of 2026. And the reason we kind of started with pre-issuance was that was kind of the area we saw the most need for data standardization. And it's also the kind of foundation and base to all the other people and actors that are using this data across the life cycle. So having that data up front solved is going to make it basically trickle down is the intention. So that's just kind of over the next 6 months, I would say. We've got a lot more work to do beyond that. And obviously our governance processes are maturing, and that's what the PPWG has been focusing on. And we continue to talk about alignment with other data standards out there in the market and Article 6, especially as that comes into more focus. So there's a lot going on and a lot to be done.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Nikodem, we're going to shift a little bit to the technical side here. We have a lot of people on this webinar who are new to CDOP, who are not members. So where can they go to either learn more about the schema and to kind of get into the weeds on what is the data, how is it structured and modeled?
Thank you, Caitlin. And thanks for having me on today. So at a high level, GitHub is the home for the CDOP's technical work. It's where we store the schema files, the documentation, supporting tools. It all lives there. And more importantly, it's a place where it can evolve over time as well. So the key reason behind the choice of GitHub was that CDOP, I think we all agreed from the outset that it's not going to be a static standard. It's going to evolve. It's something that needs to be transparent, versioned, and collaboratively developed by the market. So it gives us exactly that, this tool. It allows to track every change, shows how the schema evolves, and enable multiple stakeholders to contribute in a structured way. So in terms of what makes it effective, I think I'd like to highlight to the three areas. First is the what I mentioned, the version control and transparency. So every update, every change to the schema is visible and traceable, which is critical for trust. Second one is the collaboration aspect. So the contributors can propose changes, can discuss them openly, and improve the standard collectively. And the third is the sort of the practical usability. So it brings together the schema, documentation, validation tools into one place. So people can not only understand it, but actually start using it, get engaged. And in terms of the structure of the GitHub, the repository of all the files and documentation in there, we try to design it so it's as easy to navigate as possible. So it's like the first place to start in there is like the README file, just a manual, how to use it, what you're looking at, etc. It acts as an entry point from where you can access the schema files that define the model, the validation tools that can help you with testing your data against the schema, and then the documentation in few different forms, including the wiki page that evolves with materials that explains the various concepts in as accessible as possible way. And who's it for? Like in short, everybody, but we thought about this in terms of like three personas or user groups. So the non-CDOP members can just open the GitHub files and GitHub site and view the files. They can explore the repo. They can have a look at the schema. They can go through the documentation. The second group is the potential adopters. They can just use it as a reference and see how their current systems and databases align with the CDOP schema, and it hopefully will get them to the point where they will adopt the CDOP schema. And then finally, the contributors, which is the most active group, that basically participate on a regular basis by proposing improvements, by working in pods and on different parts of the schemas, as Ellen described before me. And they shaping the standard. So ultimately, GitHub is not just where CDOP schema is published, but it's how CDOP operates from the technical perspective. It turns the idea of interoperability into something that the market can actually engage with, test, and adopt.
Yeah, thank you, Nikodem. And I will say, as a non-technical person, I do very much appreciate the README and the wiki, which are which are really accessible for somebody like me. And I do also, I think that because of that, the GitHub is a great place to kind of get play around and get familiar with the depth of the CDOP schema and how it's structured and how it can be used. I think so. Maybe before we, Sebastian, before we go to you, Nikodem and Sebastian, you can join. I'm going to call an audible here, but join answer this question, which was coming through the chat, and speak a little bit to both the involvement of the registries and then the different types of members that we have in the pods and how we're building, what we're using, what expertise we're using to build the schema. So maybe Nikodem, I'll start with you, and then Sebastian, we'll go to you.
Of course. Well, we started with when we first started talking about the CDOP and how we approach the work. I think that the first focus was just on establishing the governance model, the four cultures, and amongst the four cultures, there's already a certain level of expertise available. Also, the agreement was to from every organization's perspective, to consider carefully what can be shared, what is an intellectual property, the sort of the natural questions that, in especially commercial organizations are being looked after very carefully. And we agreed that the approach would be that, the data is obviously not exactly shareable, but the schema, how you describe the data, that can be public and in fact should be public. This is what we're going to be working on here. And to expand on the expertise and the various perspectives, then we basically made the invitation to well, first, the initial set of participants, which was around 20, if I remember correctly, 2 years ago, and then it kept expanding to submit their schemas so we can look through them collectively and find the sort of the common denominator of how we structure the work. I'm happy to expand a little bit more, but I also wanted to hand over to you, Sebastian, to hear your thoughts.
No, thank you, Nikodem. I think you did a really good job kind of highlighting that piece. I think particularly in terms of our membership and how it's grown over I guess the past couple of years now. But we have folks from across the entirety of the VCM ecosystem, registries, project developers, VVBs, third-party providers, and ratings agencies, insurance agencies, you name it. So I think there's a kind of a wide range of expertise amongst the membership that on the technical side, the technical working group, we've tried to leverage for the schema development process, and happy to get into that in a little bit greater detail for the mechanics for how we've gone about doing that recently. But I think it's really been beneficial for our process, and I think helps to enable that kind of transparent process that Nikodem was alluding to earlier.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think one of the most interesting things about CDOP is that it is a member-driven organization. And as we've mentioned a few times, the members are also the people, it's their schemas. We're also kind of created a structure within TWG, and Sebastian will get to this in a second, that really enables us to ensure that we're building something that is representative of what is needed in the market and is really applicable. And this is in part driven by the principles that the principles and policy working group came up with. So Sebastian, let's kind of get a little more into the details of how we go about developing the schema. Nikodem mentioned that we received kind of the schemas from the membership. So maybe let's start there and then go through, how we turn that into a unified schema.
No, thank you, Caitlin. Yeah, to just piggyback off of Nikodem's point, we decided at the outset of CDOP to solicit schemas from our membership, and I think it's a testament that we've received just over 20 schemas from the wider CDOP membership that's kind of laid the groundwork for this effort. With these 20 schemas, though, we've received over 3,000 fields that we had to sort through and organize. So as you can imagine, that categorization effort was a significant undertaking. To help us kind of bring order to that chaos, we've created like an Excel-based tool, which called the mapping tool, to help us see similarities and differences between related pieces of information and unify fields that would best meet the needs of the market writ large. This harmonization aspect, as we call it, is essential to the schema development process and bridging disparate fields together and creating a unified schema. And so as Ellen mentioned previously, our initial focus was on the pre-issuance side. where we worked in the sequential order, completing 4 categories ahead of New York Climate Week last year. We recognized internally that this way of working was a little bit inefficient, or there could be greater efficiencies here. And so we opted for this pod model structure that allowed for multiple categories to be worked on concurrently. And so in that kind of democratizing of the effort, we were able to make it a little bit more collaborative, and thus the work accelerated. So we selected for this most recent round of pods a certain slate of categories. Each of those categories was led by a TWG member, and they had some other TWG members that would support as part of like a cohesive group. They would develop that draft that would then go out for testing and consultation from the wider TWG membership, who would then assess those drafts against their respective use cases using real project data. And those testing organizations provided relevant feedback back to the pods that they could then incorporate as needed. And so once all that feedback is incorporated, the responsibility falls to the co-chairs for publishing the schemas on CDOP's GitHub, which Nikodem walked through very well. And so I believe there's the link in the chat if you want to explore a little bit further. But that's not to say those published schemas are set in stone. We continually welcome feedback via pull requests or any other means to improve the schemas, encourage folks to kind of engage and get in there. For everybody, including I know registries kind of came up as part of the Q&A, but to see what's available and how best they can adopt it for their particular organizations. So hopefully that gives a little bit of a taste of the history of TWG's work and kind of what we're up to in the collaborative nature we're trying to foster.
Yeah, very helpful. Thank you, Sebastian. And I think it's been really heartening to see how much collaboration has occurred. And one thing we've heard from throughout is that it is a two-way street for collaboration. Everybody is learning from each other as we kind of go through this process. So Monica, I think maybe final question here for the panelists. There's been a lot of conversation about how we've gotten here and a little bit on the technical side about how much we're hoping to accomplish through the rest of the year. But obviously CDOP, is one initiative in a complicated space. So would love kind of final reflections on how CDOP is looking to evolve and kind of how CDOP sees itself within the other standardization efforts and the rest of the market.
Yep, definitely. And before I answer that question, I also just want to reiterate that the collaboration within CDOP has been something that is really impressive, and I think I haven't really encountered in many other spaces either. And so I think it's testament to just how useful the initiative is to everybody also, but the collegiality and frankly time and effort that people have put into it is something that I'm really grateful for. And so the question is, basically like how we continue to work with other emerging standards and things like that. And, basically there's this joke about there being 14 standards and then a 15th standard is created to standardize them. And then you end up with 15 standards instead. Maybe I didn't get the joke right, but anyway, that's not our goal here, right? So our goal is to create a standard that works for the whole market for a variety of different use cases. And so we're aware of other initiatives too that are accomplishing complementary goals. We're working very closely with some, sharing learnings and coordinating on different use cases with others. And so we have a very good sense of who's covering what. And as CDOP, I can say that we're very open to even deeper collaboration and bringing these things together over time. And part of our governance model is to be open to those kinds of developments so that there can be the kind of consultation that we need to build the kind of model, the kinds of tools that we need in the market more broadly to serve everybody's purposes.
Great. Thank you. Collaboration. It's such a refreshing tone for the carbon market. So I know there's a lot on Carbon Data Open Protocol. It can feel very abstract. So I think now it would be great to turn to two demos to show how the two CDOP members are adopting the schema and what it has enabled on the market side. And so first, I'm happy to introduce Jerome Kantz, who is the Director of Product at Equitable Earth. Equitable Earth is a global standard for restoration and conservation of carbon market projects and is charting a path forward for high quality nature-based solutions to support climate stability, project diversity, protect biodiversity, and strengthen livelihoods around the world. So Jerome, welcome and take it away.
Hello, everyone. So today I want to share how we adopted CDOP to expose our project data through an API and what that looked like in practice. First, quick context on Equitable Earth. For those who don't know us, we are a carbon registry specialized in certifying nature-based projects. We are approved by both ICT and ICRA. Our standard was built from ground up through consultation with indigenous people, local communities, and government worldwide. 5 years in, we have over 200 projects submitted across more than 25 countries. And my role here is director of product, so I own the data and platform side of what we do. Now the problem we were trying to solve. So as our partner ecosystem grew, we started getting the same request over and over. And you give us structured access to your project data so we can feed it into our catalog systems. The honest answer at the time was not really. We had no standardized format. Every data export was manual, done per partner. The field naming was inconsistent across projects. And when data changed, partners had no way to refresh automatically. They had to come back to us. It was slow, error-prone, and simply didn't scale. So we designed a solution with 3 components in mind. The first one is a single standardized API endpoint, so one entry point for all external partners, regardless of their system or use case. The second one is we chose to expose our data in the CDOP format. This was the key decision. Rather than inventing our own schema, we align with the standard, which means any catalog or platform that already speaks CDOP can integrate with us out of the box. And third, this package enables automated access. It means that partners can connect once, and from that point, they can pull fresh data whenever they need it. No emails to us, no manual export, no delays. Yeah. In this first version, we adopted 2 CDOP schema: the project approach and detail schema and the location details. These 2 cover the core of what our partners were asking for, what the project does, where it is, and the key attributes they need to list in any catalog. So just a quick view on how it looks like. Just pure JSON, respecting the CDOP format, so it's not really impressive like this, but it's a ton of work behind this. So yeah, you have all the project details exposed in a structured way using CDOP. I would like something practical to share with you. I suspect others in this room will face the same question. What do you do when your data doesn't perfectly fit with the schema? In our case, certain project attributes like size in hectares weren't covered by the existing CDOP. So we didn't want to wait for a spec update, but we also didn't want to break compatibility with future version of CDOP. So our solution was a prefix extension convention, and anything we add that goes beyond the standard is prefixed with EQE for Equitable Earth. It's immediately clear that's proprietary versus standard. It won't conflict with future CDOP feeds, and it signal to our partners, this is our extension, this is not the spec. So the goal of this, of course, we may submit a change request to the CDOP working group for some of these fields down the line, but in the meantime, this approach lets us ship without compromising interoperability. So to wrap up, CDOP gave us a ready-made language to speak to our partners. The adoption was straightforward for the schema that exists, and the extension convention solved the gaps without creating technical debt. If you are a registrar platform sitting on project data that partners are asking to consume, I would really encourage you to look at CDOP as your starting point rather than building from scratch. It would help the whole market to become more efficient, transparent, and interoperable. So that's it. Happy to take any question.
Great. Thank you, Jerome. Always cool to see. And I'm glad to hear it was easy. And yes, as we mentioned, the CDOP schema is meant to be a living, evolving product. So always great to hear the little tweaks that the members need to make. And next up for our final demo, we have Juan Duron, who is the CEO at Eco Registry. His technical leadership and business insight drives the implementation of innovative technical solutions. And those solutions are positioning Eco Registry as a benchmark for integrity and transparency in the carbon market. So Juan, welcome and take it away.
Caitlin, thank you very much for the nice introduction, and hi to everyone. I hope you're enjoying this webinar. What I'm going to show you is actually how to access two different ways of accessing the information that is on Eco Registry using the CDOP schema. So if you go on Eco Registry, you will find the different crediting programs. Okay, for the people that don't know us, we are software as a service solutions for independent crediting programs. For example, one of them is Ser Carbono. So for the Ser Carbono projects, you can see all the Ser Carbono projects. They have a carbon biodiversity and circular economy program, but you can see all the carbon projects here. And then if you go specifically on one project, what you will be able to find is, okay, here you have all the information available for the project that is normally like on the system. And here you can see everything. But more important than that is actually that you can explicitly download all the information directly from the project website as a CDOP Excel file. So when you click on downloading that CDOP Excel file, it will download all the information for that specific project on a CDOP schema. That way, anybody can actually review and check that Excel file and access the information from there with that specific standardized data model. Let me open the Excel file to show you how it looks like. Okay. While it is, it's opening here on my other screen, but while it opens, okay, now it opened. Here you can see how the Excel file looks. Since the CDOP data model is evolving constantly, we will be updating this information on our system. And here it's actually all the information like from project approach details, then location details, then you will find all the location details and the issuances as well, or the issuances that the project has. And maybe how many of them are available, how many have been retired, anything that has to do with the issuance information. That information is normally also available on the website of the specific project. So here you can see more, like for example, the eligibility for specific carbon tax mechanisms and all the retirements. This information is also available through an API, very similar to what Jerome just showed to you. Here we have, this is our, let's say, own schema endpoints, but here you can access this specific CDOP schema endpoints. This information is actually for technical users that will be using the API to access this information on the CDOP schema data model. And you can actually get this link to the API information also when you download the Excel file. That information is normally here as well. Here you can see where we have, here we always give you the GitHub for that information. So this is actually everything I wanted to share with you, and happy to receive some questions, some comments, and see what it goes to.
Yeah, thank you, An. Very cool to see. I know in the early form of CDOP, getting it implemented and hopefully making it a lot more efficient and less of a headache to kind of exchange project data. And so thank you both for the demos. With that, we will turn to the Q&A. So the first question that came in through the chat, Ellen, I will start with you. The question is, how can carbon credit buyers support this initiative? Is it mandating project developers to submit data to this model? Is it something else that you would love to see?
Yeah, we often use the case of something like an RFP is a really great way for buyers to get involved with this as kind of a first instance, because when you're running an RFP process or you're requesting information from lots of projects, you're going to get a lot of data, a lot of information. So if you can receive that data in a standardized way and developers can submit that data in a standardized way, it just makes life easier for everyone. And it also fits very well in with the work we've already done in CDOP, so that infrastructure is already there to be used. And we really want people to use it. And we've had over the past 9 months or so, people come back and give us feedback, and we're able to integrate that as well into the GitHub to also make sure the data schema is working for you guys, because that's what it's built for. You're also, as a buyer, we're definitely expanding to look along the steel thread. So we obviously have been talking a lot about pre-issuance, but increasingly we're expanding beyond that, and we're definitely looking now to kind of these more buyer-focused users, particularly those who are doing reporting and disclosing. That's something we haven't yet covered, but we'd be keen to bring into kind of the next round of pods, I think, for sure.
For sure. And Nikodem and Sebastian, anything on the technical side that you would love to see from buyers to either help support this initiative, or, as Ellen said, make sure that we are covering the detail that buyers do need to see?
I think on the maybe on the like an abstract level to answer this question is like cooperation between any two entities involves a combination of a process that is a combination of technical and manual steps, and some integrations are more automated and technical than others. But I think whether to build on what Ellen was saying, whether it's technical or manual, whether it's automated or not, having to deal less with various data transformations just speeds up the process and saves money along the way, and like redirects the money where it ultimately should go. But putting like a strictly technical hat on, any sort of integration process, if a buyer has a system that they need to enter it, the data for prospecting, or for like basically channeling the deal through different stages, adapting their database to the CDOP model, and then having compliant systems on the other side from project developers and other participants, just allows for a seamless integration and focusing on the actual, looking at credits and what the value is, rather than worrying about what we're going to do with that field because we call it differently on our side, and so on. I'm curious, Sebastian, what you think about this?
I think that's spot on. The one point that I'll emphasize is that if you are a buyer or any organization that's looking to implement, please don't hesitate to reach out, because we can help as part of that process to get you up to speed or answer questions that you may have. And so we want to make sure that you're able to use CDOP effectively. And so please don't hesitate to reach out. We'll get you as squared away as we can, especially on the technical side.
Yeah, thank you all. And I'll add, I think there's a lot of standardization efforts. And I know at the Carbon Markets Initiative, we are actually, as Ellen mentioned, RFPs is a classic example for buyers here. We are working on standardizing the RFPs or creating a common application. And because we are also involved in CDOP, we are making sure that version will be aligned with the CDOP schema at different levels of detail. So that, as Monica mentioned, we are not creating more and more and more standardization efforts, but we are instead kind of trying to coalesce around this unified, collaborative, and very grassroots efforts. So thank you all. Another question from the chat. Is there an intention here to make project documents public during the project period? And so here we'll stay on the technical side. Nikodem and Sebastian would love a little bit of maybe kind of context on what the CDOP schema is enabling and what is it not enabling when it comes to specific projects. So Nikodem, maybe we'll start with you and then Sebastian.
Sure. So if I understand the question correctly, the project documents, if I understand correctly, the question is about the contents of what's in the documents, so whether it should be public or not. So while working on the schema, we don't necessarily deal with the data itself or prescribing who should share with whom and what level of transparency organizations should keep, but how to put the data in the structure and how to describe that structure, right? So that's what the schema is. It defines entities like projects and accounts, and then what sort of properties each of those entities has, and which of those properties are important for various types of players on the market. So we consciously stay away of, from prescribing to organizations whether they should or shouldn't share what should be public. Those are questions better answered by different forums, I believe, and a lot of those also sort of pose sensitive issues for organizations, both commercial and non-for-profit ones, on what to share and how to share, complying with various jurisdictions around the world around data privacy matters and so on. Sebastian, I don't know if you have anything to add.
No, just to kind of like summarize in terms of CDOP providing the language by which to communicate the relevant information without that kind of prescription rigidity that Nikodem talked about.
Great. Thank you both. Maybe really, really quick on I know another question, well-timed. Nikodem, you mentioned kind of the privacy considerations and deciding what is and isn't public. And I know that's actually in our principles. So Monica, do you want to talk really quickly about kind of what the principles cover and how they handle privacy?
Sure. And while I wish I had the principles at the tip of my tongue, I don't, but I can speak in principle about the principles, which is to say that we spoke, both about data that needs to be private, PII kind of data, but also data that for proprietary reasons, different members didn't want to disclose. And so this was a topic of real discussion within the Principles and Policies Working Group. And the way that we worked it out with the principles is that, certainly the data model should speak to some of those facets and some of those pieces of information in terms of suggesting how it should be formatted. However, in terms of disclosing that data or sharing it or making it public, as CDOP, what the working group arrived at was kind of a reasonableness principle. And so this was drawing on how this is addressed in other markets and accounting frameworks and things like that, which is to say that data that is appropriate to be shared should, when possible, be made public and transparent, noting, for example, that the proprietary nature of certain pieces of information is something that would be not necessarily be appropriate or reasonable to disclose. And so the exact wording of that principle is online in the document, and we can share that. But I think it was a sort of a happy medium that the group arrived at. That said, we aim to have a model that addresses all of those pieces of information for private use and private communications among people who've decided to share that data with one another.
Great. Thank you, Monica. All right, Jerome and Juan, we have a question on implementation. So Jerome, we'll start with you, and then Juan will go to you. What was the most time-consuming part of implementing CDOP? Was it field mapping, internal system change, data cleanup, deciding governance rules, something else that surprised you?
It was pretty straightforward, to be honest, because our use case is quite simple. The field mapping was quite easy. The schema are pretty exhaustive and easy to understand, so we were able to map our own data with the schema quite easily. The internal systems were also straightforward because we were starting an API from scratch. So building the API with the format, and the governance was simple also because we are exposing only public data from the registry. So there is no governance public right. So it was pretty straightforward on our side. That may change with future updates, and we'll integrate more and more schema and think about way to share some data to specific personnel like buyers and people like this, where data should be more private. So we'll see. But for now, pretty easy.
I love to hear it. Easy and straightforward. That's what we're aiming for. Juan, what about you?
Okay, now I hope you can hear me now. Yeah. For us, so our architecture from the beginning has been structured as a microservices-based architecture. In that way, actually, how we access our current data model is also it looks very similar to an API. So having that kind of architecture makes it easier for the further implementation and for the development of the CDOP. I believe the most challenging part is actually maintaining, let's call it backward compatibility, because CDOP is an evolving framework, so it will keep evolving. So I don't know, right now, Equitable Earth talks, let's say, CDOP version 1.0, and maybe in the future, we are updated to version 5.1 or whatever version it is. But we will need to have backward compatibility on that. So structuring your API services, having that kind of backward compatibility, that is the most important point at this point in time. The technical part, you can leave it to Claude, to whatever AI you're using. It's not that complex. But the most important part is to think about how your architecture, your API architecture is developed.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so building, kind of intentionally building a system on your side to be able to evolve over as the CDOP schema evolves. All right, for kind of quick round robin here, for organizations that want to learn more about CDOP or want to get involved, and understanding really how it can help them, what is one thing they can do today, or you would encourage somebody to do to learn more about CDOP? We're going to do this a quick round robin. So we'll start with the co-chairs, and then Juan and Jerome. I would love the CDOP member perspective, so we'll end with you. Monica, we will start with you. Ellen, Nikodem, Sebastian, Jerome, Juan, in that order.
Yep. Well, the number one thing, and I'll take the easy one, is to visit our website and our GitHub, which are excellent resources for learning more about what we've done and has a lot of materials on there.
Ellen?
Yeah, this is gonna get quite hard, I think, by the end. But you'll also find on our website, we have an email address, that we have a direct CDOP email address. So either you can reach out straight to one of the co-chairs or through the email address to hear more, have a conversation with one of us.
Yeah, and we will get that email also in the chat and share it out. Nikodem, on the technical side?
Sure. It does get hard, yes. I was going for the GitHub, but thanks, Monica. But the next step is basically everything there. There's no barrier to entry there when you get to GitHub, especially. So you can read through the documentation, start to familiarize with the concepts. But I think Juan made an excellent point. We thought about CDOP with a versioning of it in place, so you don't have to worry that once you've implemented and then it changes, it's going to cost a lot of work to redo everything from scratch and so on. That versioning approach, we believe, is going to allow us to sort of take small steps at a time, and make it hopefully easier.
Great. Thank you. Fashion.
I'd say a lot of folks stole my thunder there, but I will reiterate to engage with the website and the GitHub as well, and use that contact form to reach out, because we do host on the technical side monthly working group meetings, and so having folks' perspective there is really, really important, and that kind of cross-pollination of ideas as we update the TWG on the work as it's going, and the pod structure that I referenced. And it gives you the ability to join and be actually a part of the building process. So I think that's beneficial. I'll also give a quick highlight. There have been a series of LinkedIn blog posts that have been posted, and so check those out. It gives you some added color in terms of what CDOP is all about, what we're doing and whatnot. So please go ahead, search for that and check it out.
Great, thank you. And Jerome and Juan, from the member side, what is one thing you want people to know about CDOP and why you keep using it?
I would say we can all benefit from this adoption. It makes communication between systems much easier. It reduces cost, integration, things like that. So just I strongly encourage everyone to get involved in this initiative. That's a great initiative. It's a complex one for sure. There are tons of participants and it's a complex market. So, but yeah, if you own a system that holds data, please join.
Great, thank you. Juan, final word.
Cool. Yeah, if I will also encourage people to go on the CDOP website and especially on the GitHub. There you will find two things. For the non-technical users, you will find also an Excel file that will help you actually navigate through the CDOP model so that you can understand, like in real words, what it means. And that non-technical user can also put actually just the GitHub link into a Cloud Code and ask Cloud Code to connect to our GitHub actually on EcoRegistry, and you will get all the information from all the projects on EcoRegistry at just less than 1 minute. That's one way to start using it. I will encourage people to actually do it.
Great, thank you. And finally, I know a bunch of us are headed to London next week. So Ellen, do you want to round us up with what's ahead at London Climate Action Week?
Yeah, definitely. And as I kind of alluded to earlier, our big event of the calendar is New York Climate Week. So this is kind of a midpoint for us, but quite a lot of us, I'm sure many of you will also be in London. So we'll be around at a lot of different events. We'll be at some of the VCM Plus Coalition sessions, and we've been working closely to make sure CDOP and lots of the other data standardization activities that are going on are being represented there and talked about and progressed. Individually, we also are, our different organizations also have a number of events. So you'll be able to see, so like from my perspective in Silvera, we have networking drinks on the Monday you'll be able to find, but I know many other orgs also have plenty of events going on, so you'll see us there. But our focus is on the momentum, kind of going through London Climate Week, thinking ahead to New York. But if you'd like to speak to us about CDOP, then also drop us an email. We'll be around and ready to chat.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you. I think I'm excited to see you all in person and off the screen. So thank you all for a very wonderful conversation, and for all who joined. We are very happy to answer more questions, kind of explain how the CDOP model can be helpful to your use case. So don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you, everyone. Bye.